Well, hello, church. My name is Melissa Urich, and I'm a part of the staff team here at The Well, and it is just one of my favorite things to be able to welcome you to our online worship service. You know, there's a lot of exciting things happening around here in Ontario, Canada. That's where actually The Well meets, because things are starting to open back up again. I know other areas of the world have already done that, but this is exciting news. And in fact, our church, The Well, meets in 3 different locations in person. So if you've been checking us out online for a while and you'd actually like to experience the 3D version of church, we would love to have you. We're meeting in Vaughan, King City, and Bolton, Ontario. Vaughan and Bolton meet in the mornings on Sundays at 10 a.m. And then actually in King City, we meet in the afternoon at 4. And you can get all of that information on our website. But I just want you to know that you would be more than welcome to join us. You know, we do this church thing every week. We gather together to sing and to pray and to listen. And we do this. It's actually a practice. It's something that we do together because we believe that when we stop in the craziness of the life that is going on around us, when we discipline ourselves to stop and to gather, that we can actually hear from God. We believe that's actually what our worship services are about. They're creating a space for you to encounter the God that loves you. And so even though you're joining us online, I don't want you to miss out on that today too. So I thought just before we get started, before the worship team comes on and leads you, and you know, we always encourage people, I know you're online, but man, sing along with them. Before we do that, I just thought I would give you this chance to take a couple deep breaths with me and just slow down. I don't know what's on your mind for the rest of today. I don't know the to-do list that you have or the exciting things you're thinking about, but just for this next hour to just slow down and to enter into this space and allow your heart and your mind to be ministered to. So would you just close your eyes wherever you are and take 3 deep breaths with me? Let's do it together. One more. Welcome to The Well.
Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness, you have filled me with your peace. Giver of mercy, you're my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are, and all your promises are yes and amen. And all your promises are yes and amen. Beautiful Savior, beautiful Savior, you have brought me near. Pull me from the ashes, you have broken every curse. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but sing. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are, and all your promises are yes and amen. Sing it out. And all your promises are yes and amen. your promises. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Come on. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. So your promises are yes and amen. Faithful, faithful you are. Faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. So your promises are yes and amen. So your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen.
Welcome to Church at the Well. This is the end of Live on Mission Week. And last week, we actually talked about the fact that the word missions, is a bad word. And we were actually trying to rescue it to help us understand, wait, God is actually on a mission, and that mission is love. And so if you didn't catch that, go back. But this week, we're talking about another bad word. The word is church. And here's what I mean by that. Like if tomorrow I ran into one of my neighbors or perhaps somebody that I'm related to or used to work with, former colleague, or just a friend, and I said, yeah, yesterday we talked about the church and what does it mean to be about the church? They may be nice, but probably under their breath can be like, who cares? The church? Who cares? You may have had that experience in a sense where very much so the people may know you go to church or it's something that's a part of your life, but they don't really care. It doesn't make any difference to their lives in their mind. Even more so, if we can be honest, in our current Canadian climate, it's not just that people don't care about church. Some people, whether they would say it out loud or not, but certainly some of the message that comes to us is, you know what, we kind of wish the church it maybe have been a part of our past, but we don't really think it should be a part of our future. People would have these kinds of perspectives across the board, whatever age you are, maybe your friends or family members or whatever, or neighbors. It's like that it's irrelevant. The church is irrelevant, that it's foolish to believe in that or that kind of faith in a way that it definitely should not be something in the public sphere. It should be kept very private. Like, don't believe it too much. Certainly don't talk about it. Don't try to convince other people that they should be a part of church or in some way. And to some degree, that the beliefs of religion in general, or perhaps even the Christian faith, are dangerous. This is a very different age that we are living in. This is, in part, our Canadian climate and our culture. If you were in Generation Z, so born between the ages of 1997 and 2012, Gen Z, they're saying that your generation is the first generation to grow up without any kind of institutionalized religion or faith in your background. And that only 9% of people in that category would be a regular part of any kind of a church. So even if you are a part of this church, generally your generation is not interested in it at all. They're like, yeah, don't really need that. Now you add in 2 years of a pandemic where for many months at a time, we were not allowed to gather, we were not allowed to sing together, we were not allowed to eat together as a church. I mean, what kind of a church are you if you can't eat together? We couldn't pray together, we couldn't be in the same room. And that wasn't just about restrictions or, oh, now we had to be online. There was a massive disruption in what it means, of course, in every part of society, but certainly what it means to be the church. That many of us through that, not only has our mental health taken a hit, but our spiritual health in total has taken a hit. There's been a lot of disruption, disorientation, even feelings of disconnection from each other as the church and from God. And what does it even mean to be the church now? And how are we gathering? And or you come back and you're like, where is everybody? Or how is this going to work? What does it even mean? Is this, and where is my faith in at this point? 2 years has done some damage. So not only are we living in a culture and a climate that says we're not really sure the church is a good thing, it may be part of our past, we're not really sure we want it to be part of our future. And the disruption of 2 years of a pandemic where so much has changed in the way we think about church and faith. What does it even mean to be the church now? Now, in response to this and the culture we live in and the way we're at, there's really, I mean, to the risk of oversimplifying, two opposite but equally dangerous reactions or responses. One is to shake our fist, to be the people who campaign for our religious rights, who are angry at the way the world and the culture wants to marginalize our faith or tell us to keep it private, or, say we need to fight, that fist that says we need to fight. Remember the good old days when we used to pray in schools, when everybody went to church? That we need to campaign, that we can be angry at the world, that we can be judgmental towards people who are trying to marginalize us. We say we need to get the church back to where it was valued in society. We need to get out of the margins and back to the majority. That's one way to do it, to shake our fist. The other way is to throw up our hands and say, just doesn't matter. What is that really going to mean? And what does that look like to throw up our hands? That in many ways, that church, for some of us, for a lot of us, has become like a social network. Yep, I'm connected. I'm connected to these people and they meet a need. We happen to go to the same church, or we happen to used to go to the same church, but now we're just part of a social network and I can take it or leave it, but I'm not really invested, deeply connected in it. It's more of a hobby than it is a lifestyle and a way of being. That this is just something that, it might or might not come back, or I used to do it and I don't anymore. These are two opposite but equally dangerous responses, and they're dangerous for different reasons. The danger of shaking your fist is that over time you become something grotesque. You cannot shake your fist for any long period of time without becoming hard and judgmental on the inside and the outside, without becoming the very thing the world hates the church for. Without becoming the very thing that we would look back in history and say, man, we've made a mess. You can't shake your fist for very long without becoming something grotesque. And so we need to be wary about that kind of posture and response to the world we find ourselves in. But equally dangerous and yet totally different. We cannot be naive for the fact that when you throw up your hands, the risk is that you become weak and old and thin and you disappear. That we allow ourselves to simply become absorbed in the culture, and over time, we just fade away. We disappear. That what used to be a conviction and a lifestyle and a family and a way of life is just one of many options in life. And over time, we weaken, we thin, we grow old, and we disappear. These are the two equally dangerous but opposite reactions to the world we find ourselves in. We are, if I can say this, friends, in a crisis as a church, at a crisis point. History will look back on the church, capital C, around the world at this time. History will look back at the well and say, what did you decide to do given the world and the circumstances you were in? Who did you decide to become? Did you become something hard and grotesque? Or did you just disappear? This question and this crisis, in one sense, is not new. It's actually a few thousand years old. The name for it is exile. Exile is the condition and the place that the people of God actually have found themselves in many times. Maybe in history, most profoundly about 2,600 years ago, where the people of Jerusalem, the people of God who lived in Israel, were attacked by the Babylonians who became kind of the first world superpower. And what the Babylonians would do for any city and any country that they aimed to conquer was they would come in and they destroyed the temple. They destroyed the center of that country and that nation's religion. And so when they tore down the temple, it was saying, your God's not powerful. Your God's not in control. Our gods are now in control. And then they would tear down the city walls. So when they tore down the temple, they were tearing down their sense of religious and cultural identity. When they tore down the city walls, they were tearing down their sense of economic and ethnic and sort of geographic identity. They were saying, you're not safe anymore. The city walls were what kept you safe and strong. And so when those were destroyed, it was weakening a city. And then what they would do was kill some of the leaders very publicly to show their dominance and power. And then, very strategically, they would export all of the people who were educated, who were wealthy, who were priests or political leaders who owned land, who had intellectual property that they valued, and they took them all to Babylon, and they were going to brainwash them, get rid of their religion, get rid of their culture, get rid of their language, get rid of their way of life, and harvest, in a sense, all of the riches and all of the intellectual property and the wealth and the assets of the people that they took to make Babylon stronger. And they would leave all of the poor people, all the destitute people in the city who had no family, who had lost loved ones or whatever, so that the city would never be rebuilt, so it could never come back. This is what Babylon did to its enemies, and they did it to the people of God. And so the people of God became exiles in Babylon. And in Babylon, they faced the same challenges, the same temptations. Because in exile, let me describe this for you. You can see, even though it's 2,600 years old, it sounds strangely familiar. In exile, they were displaced and disoriented. In a sense, all of the markers of what was familiar and what was comfortable and what was home were either disrupted or destroyed. They were gone. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a foreign place. It wasn't familiar. There was disruption and disorientation. Not only that, there was a feeling of powerlessness and disconnection. Powerlessness, like we are powerless to do anything about what has happened to this, and we actually feel God has not come through for us. We feel disconnected from God in this as well. And then they found themselves in a culture that was hostile to their culture, to their language, to their beliefs, and certainly their religion. This was the marks of exile. Does it sound familiar? I mean, 700 years later, some of the details are different, but the environment and the experience is the same. We have faced and we feel, in a sense, disrupted and disoriented when the markers of what is familiar and comfortable have changed dramatically. When we don't feel like we're home, when this place that used to be familiar feels foreign to us now, and we don't know the landscape anymore. And the things that used to give us a sense of stability are actually dramatically changed or completely gone. We also feel a sense of powerlessness at what is happening around us, both in the environment and the world and the decisions that other people are making. And we wonder, where is God? God, where are you? We feel disconnected from him as well. And many times, it's certainly in seasons like this. And we also find ourselves in a culture that would say, you know what, we'd rather you just stop talking about your faith. We'd rather you disappear. We don't need the church anymore. This is the experience of exile. And Israel also faced the same two temptations that we ourselves face here in exile so many hundreds of years later. To shake their fist, to hate the city, to hate the Babylonians, to hate the people, to see them as enemies and to say, you're the reason for our problems, to be angry with them. And in a sense, the people were sitting outside of the city and refusing to be in the city. They were angry, they were shaking their fist at it. Or others just say, well, this is our new life. Let's just disappear. Our culture, our identity, our faith, our God, it's gone anyways. Let's just embrace the new world. They were faced with both those temptations, and into that place, God sends a messenger. His name was Jeremiah. And he sent him with a letter to the people who were in exile, inviting them out of those two reactions of shaking their fists or just throwing up their hands and disappearing. It's, in a sense, God's manifesto for exile. How do we, as the people of God, thrive in exile? And I want you to listen to what he says.
This is the text of the letter that the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to the surviving elders among the exiles and to the priests, the prophets, and all the other people Nebuchadnezzar had carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. This was after King Jehoiachin and the queen mother, the court officials and the leaders of Judah and Jerusalem, and the skilled workers and the artisans had gone into exile from Jerusalem. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace of prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper.
To the people of God back then, and to us so many hundreds of years later, facing disruption, disorientation, powerlessness, feeling disconnected from each other and from God, facing a culture that was hostile to their way of life and to their beliefs. God says this, and he tells them one really important thing, the very first thing they needed to know. It's very interesting when you read the letter. He says, to the exiles that Nebuchadnezzar, the megalomaniac world leader, to the exiles that Nebuchadnezzar carried into Babylon, he says, this is what I say. I carried you into Babylon. This is a very interesting turn of phrase. I know that what you saw was Nebuchadnezzar carrying you into Babylon. He destroyed the temple where I live and he took you away from, quote, me and brought you into Babylon. But God's saying, I walked with you. I am actually with you right here. Which is another way to say, you are not in the hands of your culture or your government. You are in the hands of God. You are not at the mercy of or in the power of your government or your culture. You are in the hands of God. They were so tempted to give power to this powerful king and this empire that had basically destroyed them in one fell swoop. Very easy, in a sense, to give power to the things that seem so visibly in control and controlling us. And God says, no, I am with you, even here in exile. And because of that, he says, I don't want you to shake your fist and I don't want you to disappear. Here's what I want you to do. And he tells them two really important things. Not only that we're the manifesto for exile, how to thrive in exile for them then, but us too. We in each of our three sites in King and Bolton and Vaughan, as we seek to say, what does it mean to be the church in this time? The very words that God gives them are the words he gives us as well. First, he says this, make this place home. You notice the language. He says, build houses, plant gardens, increase, don't decrease. And give your sons and daughters, be married, and this is the interesting thing. In that day, your children and your children's children were your future retirement plan. And basically he's saying, hey, you're sitting outside, you're waiting for this to be over. Stop waiting for this to be over in order to thrive. You can thrive in exile. You can be here. You can plant gardens. You can build houses. You can plan to be here for a long time. This isn't going away anytime soon. So put down roots. Put down roots. Invest relationally. Stop waiting for normal. Don't slowly disappear. Friends, this is words for us today. Stop waiting for how it used to be. Stop talking about how it used to be. Stop thinking this is just going to get fixed quickly. You can thrive in exile even if nothing feels normal. Even if everything is unpredictable and uncertain. Even if many things have been disrupted, because God is here, you can make this place home. You can put down roots in this church. You can put your roots back down in this community to reinvest relationally. All of these things have been uprooted. We actually need to intentionally invest again, and we need to stop waiting for normal or stop waiting till, I have enough time to do it. We actually need to make this place home again, and not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. I was reading an article last week about how someone was saying there are members of their family now, because of the pandemic, because of the trucker protests or whatever, where they don't even talk to each other anymore. There are people who have felt like home has become a place of conflict, has become a place of disruption. And add that to the widespread feelings of isolation, fear, anxiety, depression, and the mental health crisis. There are so many people longing for a place that feels like home. And when we invest relationally, when we make our church family a family again, the institution needs to die. It may be dying, but are the people of God going to die with it? Not if we make this place home. Not if we invest relationally. Not if we create a relational center where people who are looking for a home will find it here. It's what God says to the exiles. And then he says, love the city. He says, seek the peace, which is the word shalom, we'll get to that later, and the prosperity of the city. This idea of peace, of integration, of whole life. The word shalom didn't just mean like, inner sort of tranquility. It meant all of life's relationships with each other, with ourselves, with God, with creation in a harmonious way. He says, seek the place and the prosperity, the welfare, the economic thriving of the city. That's why they were supposed to build houses and plant vineyards and contribute to the economic and the social and the relational fabric and thriving of this place. And he says something so profound to them. He says, because in its welfare is your welfare. It's like he was taking, hey, your well-being and this city that you're living, now their well-being and your well-being are tied together. If it prospers, you will prosper. If it thrives, you will thrive. Don't shake your fist at the culture and the place that feels hostile to you. Love it. Don't shake your fist at it. Love this city. Now think about that. He was not saying this to people who had a ton of extra time on their hands, who had a lot of emotional reserves, who were in a really good place to go, okay, now my life is settled, I can start thinking about other people. Their whole lives had been disrupted. They had zero emotional reserve. They barely escaped with their lives. They had just seen some of their family die. They had been taken out of their homes. The city walls had been destroyed. The temple had been destroyed. They were now in this completely foreign land, and they're staring at the city, and God says, you know these people, I know you want to see them as their enemies. I know you want to be angry with them. I know you want to shake your fist at them, but I actually want you to love it. I actually want you to invest and seek the welfare and the shalom of this very place. If we think it's hard to love and seek the welfare of others right now, it might have seemed impossible, inconceivable, almost offensive to them that God was saying this to them. Not only make this place home, but actually love this place that you don't even want to be. Why? Well, he goes on to say a verse which I did not read for you because maybe some of you already have it tattooed on your body or it's in some place in your house or whatever. And we quote it a lot, and I'm afraid we misquote it because we apply it to anything and everything we want to do. Here's what the verse says. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Maybe you've never heard that verse before, maybe you heard it before. This is what he was saying it for. When you make this place home, this place that feels like a foreign place, that feels like disruption, that feels like disconnection, where you feel disoriented and you're tempted to just wait and wait and wait until you feel more comfortable. When you invest relationally, when you put down roots, and when you love the city that you're in, when instead of shaking your fist at the world around you, you love it, you serve it, you seek its well-being. He says, do it because I have plans for you. And my plans, as you make this home, as you love the city, are to prosper you and not to harm you, are to give you hope now and a future to come. Friends, that is beautiful. This is the manifesto for the church in exile, in our day and our time, for all three of our sites in King City, in Bolton, and in Vaughan, to put down roots in that place, invest relationally, and to love the city and the town where you're in. In a moment, we're going to talk about what that looks like in each of our respective sites. But I want to pause here and give us a chance to respond in worship. It's a song called Build My Life. It's a picture of actually investing, of building a home, of making a foundation. It says, I'll build my life on your love, God, and then lead me in that to the people around me. So let's pause and use this as a prayer of response, as a prayer of the exiles.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Oh, you're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Sing Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Fill us up. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Oh,
What does it look like to love the town, to love the city where we are, to invest relationally, to seek the peace, the shalom of each of the places where we're at, in Vaughan, in King, in Bolton? That word shalom, as I said, was not primarily about inner tranquility, but about each person having healthy and whole and peaceful relationships with each other, both at a household level and at a level of nations, right? Peace between people, love, a wholeness and health and an integration between us and God. So having a relationship with God that was healed and whole and close and intimate. A relationship with ourselves where there is peace and no shame, where there is a whole and healthy view of self. And then peace and life and healthy life with the planet, like the integration of all things. Shalom is actually in every way, like relationship with each other, relationship with God, relationship with ourselves, relationship with our planet, with our work, with our world, is actually what God means to bring to full completion in the new creation, in the new heavens and new earth. At the end of our story, this whole story that God is working in our lives is working towards shalom. But we are invited to pursue it now, to seek the shalom of the place where we live. And that means, in one sense, each of us individually is called to do that. In the relationships you see and have, to actually help bring peace and reconciliation in marriages, between family members, between your friends who are fighting or at odds with each other, between neighbors who are arguing over property lines or whatever, between people in the workplaces, between employers and employees, whether that means about the boss you have or you are the boss, however that works. In the ways and the work that you're studying and planning to do to actually bring goodness and peace and shalom to creation and to people that you're working with. That's every day, individually, we're called to pursue and seek the peace and prosperity of the city that we're in. To also seek to bring healing to people's mental, emotional, and physical health. To help people who are suffering with isolation and crisis, and to be present in their lives, to be an agent of peace and love and acceptance, to make your own home, home, to make your own cubicle where you work, or your own desk, or your sports team, or whatever, a place of peace and rest. But then what does that mean for us collectively? And I want to just kind of highlight a little bit today how each of our 3 sites, and because maybe you're a part of that and you're watching, or you're just getting to know our church and say, well, what does this look like as a church does this, engages in loving the city? And there's lots of different ways, but there's 3 in particular where we have partnered with in each of our sites, a community or an organization that is doing the work of shalom in the place that where we are. And I want to give you just a glimpse of each of those. In Bolton, we are partnering with an organization called Victory House. Victory House is actually a really new ministry. There's about 50 volunteers, but they've just launched actually a home in Caledon, which is offering a safe next step home for women and their children who are in crisis or needing to transition into a healthier living situation. And that's something we can begin to invest in relationally and give to and get to know. And so that's happening in Bolton. That's happening in the broader town of Caledon, Victory House. In King City, it's the Ontario Women's Centre, which is a ministry of Teen Challenge. This particular home, it's an Ontario Women's Home in King City on some beautiful farm acreage. It runs a 12-month in-residence alcohol and drug rehabilitation program. And it's actually for women 18 plus, helping them get free and for them to transition into what's next. It's also a home, right? Like both of these, Victory House and Ontario Women's Centre, are like actual physical places of home. Places where people are investing relationally and inviting others to get healing and wholeness. And then in Vaughan, we have partnered with LifeWorthy. John Castle, some of you may know him. He's been working actually out of our offices in Costa Road for a few years. We've been partnering with LifeWorthy for a while. It used to be called Men Ending Trafficking. And this is, LifeWorthy provides and promotes supportive community and spiritual care for commercially sexually exploited young people and their families. And that's something we've done for a few different ways and things we've given to, done info sessions. Many of you have prayed, if you've been a part of a Vaughan home group, for the human trafficking issue in our York region, in our city. We've given money and given bags of support for people who are coming out of the industry. We host a monthly gathering called Ladies Night, which is just kind of an informal place to connect, to be prayed for, to learn about God, to have people who love you and walk with you. Those are for all people who have been sexually exploited or who are still in the industry in some way or are parents of. And so that's a partner that we are working with in the city of Vaughan. This year for Live on Mission Week, we have a goal to raise $10,000 for our international work. We talked about that last week, but anything over and above that $10,000 is actually going to be divided across our 3 sites to invest in each of these 3 local partners. And here's the thing, this isn't just about money that we're giving to support, although that's really valuable. And if you haven't had a chance to give to that, you can actually go online to thewell.ca and you can give to that $10,000 goal. And by God's grace, we'll overshoot that a lot. So we can actually give a lot to each of these 3 places, to Victory House, to Ontario Women's Centre in King City, and to Lifeworthy. But this is something, friends, that we are actually saying, no, we need to invest ourselves relationally by giving, by praying, by serving. There are opportunities and there will be opportunities to serve, to say to these partners, we are with you for the long haul. This is not going to be easy or quick work to bring shalom to these places, especially to women and children who have been victims of trafficking or abuse or in difficult situations in transition, or who suddenly, because of a pandemic, find themselves on the edge of poverty. This is not quick or easy, and so we want to partner with these partners who are loving the city well and love them as well. So I want to invite you just to learn more about that, and if you're in any one of those sites, if that's home for you, or maybe you haven't decided, I want to encourage you to make a place home so that you can invest and begin to love the city as well. As we close our service today, before the band leads us in a final song, we get to celebrate communion together. This is the elements of the cup and the bread, which, if we can say today, they symbolize, in a sense, Jesus being broken so we could be made whole. Jesus giving himself in his life to bring us home. But it's also then a symbol to say, as we share in it, which we're going to do in a moment, and if you have a cracker or a piece of bread or whatever that is, you can grab that, and whatever juice or water or whatever you have around. As we participate in that, we're not only saying, oh, Jesus, you did this for us. We are receiving his invitation to say, hey, be willing to be broken for others. Be willing to be sacrificed for the good of others. Even when you feel like you're in a place of displacement or disruption and you don't feel like you have a lot to give, you can give. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans to not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. That's what the communion invitation is, not just to receive the gift of God, but to become the gift of God to others. And so Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, he took bread and he broke it. He said, this is my body, broken so that you would be made whole. The same way he took the cup. He said, this is my blood spilled as a new promise, a new way of bringing you home, of bringing you back to God, of bringing you back to each other, of bringing shalom into your life. But as you take it today, not only do we take it to receive this, but take it as a prayer to say, God, help me be willing to sacrifice. Help me be willing to be broken, even if I feel like I'm in a bit of a broken state right now. Help me to be willing to invest in the lives of others. Help me to be willing to have a love. Give me the love that you had for me, for the city and the people that I live with. And so let's take this together. I pray for you. Lord Jesus, help us. Help us to love this place that is so easy sometimes to shake our fist at and to be angry about or wish for a days gone by. Help us to invest relationally when it would be very tempting to just let it go, to sit back, to treat our community and our church as an option in our social network and not as a place to make home. God, help us as we have received your love, as we have been made whole, as we have been brought home, as we have been loved by you. Help us to be that kind of community in the places where we live, so that history in 20, 30, 50, 200 years would look back and say, that community made a home for the people around them. That community loved our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it. No, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yeah. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, no, I don't deserve it. Still, you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
Okay, church. Well, before you go, like I mentioned at the beginning, maybe you're new here. Maybe you haven't actually met anybody on our staff or connected with anyone here at the church, and we would love to meet with you, whether it's just over email or like, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a pretty excitable person. I love coffee. And so I'd love to meet you for one. You can just go to thewell.ca/new here and complete one of our like connection forms. And one of our site pastors or staff team will be happy to get in contact with you and answer any questions you might have. Don't worry, we're not going to show up at your house. We don't even ask for your address. It's just your email. So you don't need to be afraid. Before you go today, I wanted to let you know, like I said at the beginning of the service, there's lots of exciting things happening around here. And in fact, the announcements that we have coming next are really cool. Like there's some really fun things that I wouldn't want you to miss out on. So before you go, just carve out a few more minutes and have a look at some of these announcements. Church, we wanted to let you know that our divorce care group is starting up again this year. Every year we run this group, and we believe it to be a really powerful ministry, actually, to bring people together who are going through the same difficulties to be able to learn and to share and to grow together. And so if you are divorced, if you were divorced a long time ago, or you're going through one now, or maybe you're not divorced yet, but you're separated and you're having trouble in your marriage, this group is perfect for you, actually. They're going to be meeting together in person beginning March 29th, and you can get all of the information that you need about that on our website at thewell.ca/divorcecare. You'd be able to register there, and they're actually meeting at our Vaughan location we call it the Hub, which is right at Highway 7 and 400. And so if you have any questions about that, or you wonder if this is something that maybe could be helpful to you now, yeah, please go on there, fill out the form. We'll be in touch with you and answer any questions you might have. But yeah, we wanted to make that available to you. Oh, also, I wanted to tell you, if you know someone who doesn't go to our church, they're welcome as well. Feel free to invite others. This is actually just a ministry that we want to be able to offer. There's lots of people that have to go through this, and so we want to be able to be there and walk through that with them. Guys, one aspect of my job is actually to be a family ministry pastor, and that's just a privilege for me. I'm a mom myself. I have 2 kids who are, I guess, 14 and 16. I know, it's unbelievable. How could I have children that old? It's crazy, right? But anyways, I wanted to tell you, we know that parenting is tough. It is. And we know that you want to get it right. Like we all do, don't we? We don't want to actually mess this thing up. So we want to help. So we're really excited that this year we're going to be running our first ever Parent Summit. There's lots of different ways that we try here at the Well to support parents, but that includes bringing in experts. And so we're really excited to be able to use a curriculum called Are My Kids on Track? And let me tell you, okay, this is not a curriculum that's all about measuring, different kind of technical things or like quantitative things that is going to actually make you feel terrible about how you parent. So I just want to relieve you of that now. Actually, the point of this is it's a very conversational curriculum in which we talk about different milestones that our kids need to reach, but not maybe milestones that you think of, like how fast they walk or whether or not they're sleeping through the night. Those are important things. But we're actually going to be talking about emotional and social and spiritual milestones that kids need to go through to become healthy, functioning adults. That's our goal, right? We want our kids to grow up to be healthy and whole and contributing members of society. And so we are just really excited to offer this course. It's actually going to be happening online. We're going to do it on March 23rd and 24th in the evenings from 8 until 9:30 p.m. We believe that that's the most accessible time for all of the different ages. So whether or not you don't have kids, but you're thinking about kids, or you're expecting one, or your kids are older, they're teenagers like mine, or maybe even young adults. The really great thing about this curriculum is it is applicable at all life stages. It truly is. I've been reading the book that kind of accompanies the curriculum is called Are My Kids on Track? And there are 2 psychologists that wrote it. Their names are Sissy Goff and David Thomas. And these guys run a counseling center in Nashville, Tennessee. And so they have all of these kids and families that they have worked through all sorts of different issues with, whether it's anxiety or depression, divorce. it runs the whole kind of gamut of stuff. And they have written this book to help us as parents to be able to have the conversations that we need to have and create the environments in our homes that help our kids achieve these milestones. And so you need to register and come. There's no cost. Like, this is a free curriculum, a free summit for you to attend. Like I said, it's going to be in the evening, so you can do it at home. You don't have to get a babysitter. And you can invite your friends. Like I said, this is actually meant and accessible for anyone. So whether or not you're somebody that follows Jesus or not, the content within is completely applicable to your family situation. I also want to let you know that there's going to be breakout sessions. So we're going to, like, the way the evening goes, just so you know, is we're going to watch some content together and learn. And then we're going to break into groups in kind of loosely based on age and stage. So you get to choose which group you want to be a part of. I usually call them littles, middles, and bigs. And so we'll talk about that as it goes along. And we'll be able to put you in groups with maybe a friend that you know you want to be with. But you can be in those groups to just talk. There's listening guides and questions that will be accompanying the content. And we can just talk about how this actually could play out in our own lives. So there's a learning portion and there's like a sharing portion. And we believe that this is actually the way to do it. I've often said, I don't know how I could have parented by myself. I'm so grateful for my church family and my friends who have kind of journeyed this with me. And we want you to be able to have that experience too. And so mark your calendars for March 23rd and 24th from 8 until 9 p.m. and go to thewell.ca/PAS 2022. That's Parent Summit 2022. You get that? Go there and register, and I will be able to get in contact with you and give you all the details and send you the Zoom link and all of that stuff. But you don't want to miss it. And again, sorry, I did say this, but whether you're like, you have babies and you're thinking, I'm never going to have to talk to them about being resilient, you will. And whether or not you have an 18-year-old that you're like, really, do we have to talk about emotional vocabulary? You do. This is applicable all the way along. And so please come. You won't regret it, I promise.